We actually managed to do it. All 14 goddesses. We've now done an insane mode run with every single goddess in the game. We're like super Kamigami experts or something. Loki was the final one. We left her till the end because she's so interesting and fresh, and of course I feel like they all have like their unique feel. But some of them still play like in a standard way, but with like, like a little bonus, or like something a little bit extra. So like Zeus still plays a standard game. She just plays it like faster, faster than almost anyone possibly could. Whereas Loki most definitely is just creative, most definitely true to her narrative background, most definitely trickster, mischief, silliness, a million different ways of building a Loki deck. I actually started by trying to build like this Hades statue deck because, of course, she has an activated ability that costs 5. So I figured, if I had 2 Hades statues and like some Medusas, so some Chimeras and a Loki, then my opponent does whatever they want on their side of the board, and then I can just do whatever I want on my side of the board. Once it's in place, once all the combo pieces are together, we suddenly teleport straight over there with a Chimera, free cost per, using its ability. Oh my god, 3 per 10 damage. If you got 3 Hades, like, oh, crazy. I was so excited about it. It didn't quite work that way. Um, I'll talk about that in a minute, actually. I'm just kind of, obviously, just like super impressed with myself. Because I did not want to do Poseidon, and I really was not enjoying that at all. So I'm just glad that one's over. And I'm glad we left Loki till the end, because she was most definitely one of the most fun. I'll give like a quick overview of the goddess like I normally do, and then I'll go through the cards one by one and then just tie it all together. That's how I normally approach these things, and this is the final one. So let's make it an epitome of an insane mode kind of like retrospective. How it went, strengths and weaknesses, what she does well, what she does badly. Okay, I've said all along there are 4 goddesses that I like rate as like the top tier, like these are the best. Izanagi, Izanami, Odin, Loki. These 4 all offer like additional strategic or tactical options. They're at the top. Like of all 14, these are the 4 that I rate the highest because they have very, very few bad matchups, and some matchups they just ruin, like absolutely ruin. Specific to Loki, her ability can be horrible. Just in a matchup that she's kind of like okay even in, if you make a mistake, of course Loki can just jump. A typical issue is, you'll put down like 2 monuments in a corner or something, and there's a space that you'll put a permanent in, and then she'll just switch with the unit, and suddenly your permanents are next to her. She won't attack the permanents, and of course, because they're your permanents, you can't attack them either. And then she's just sitting behind your own permanents. That you've accidentally made like an impenetrable fortress. You've basically got like 2 Aphrodites. You have to earthquake your own board just to be able to attack Loki, which is super like stupid and silly and very, very funny. But I'm just highlighting like she has the capability to do like things that no other goddess in the game possibly can. She has ways of winning that no other goddess in the game possibly can. The most obvious, of course, is her ability when she's ready, when she decides in her own time that she's got the pieces she needs, she can just teleport you straight to her. Like she's just like, you know what? I've saved up enough devotion. I've finally got like that Fenrir I needed, on the board to finish you. No problem. Put some mummy next to like the Fenrir. Loki uses her ability, switches the mummy with your goddess, so now your goddess is next to the Fenrir. Fenrir finishes the game, and there's nothing you can do about that. At any time, she can just pick your units up and decide to put them wherever she wants. She can just take her units and put them almost wherever she wants. There are some restrictions, but because the way you have to build is that things can only go in squares adjacent to you. As a general rule, Loki can put whatever she wants next to whatever she wants all the time, and it's just tons of fun. It's very, very silly. It causes some matchups to be horrible though. When I played as Hades into Loki, we actually had we were there for about an hour because Hades starts very, very slow, and we had like the Taishas to get stuff in our grave, And this is stuff that Hades needs. Like, there are some things that Hades needs. He cannot afford to start bad. And even when we had like a great start, we could like Soul Extractor to get like on relative parity. Loki would just go, oh, what? You put down that Taisha? Oh, I see. You want to put stuff in the grave so you get stronger? You know what? I think I'm just going to like teleport over there and deal with that. I don't like that idea. Taisha, nah, that's not my sort of thing. That's gone. And that's her decision, and you can't really do anything about it. You can't protect your permanence. It doesn't matter what your win conditions are. If Loki doesn't want it to exist on the board anymore, it doesn't matter if you put it in the back line. She decides it goes in the front line. You suddenly put your beat stick in the front line. She goes, nah, I'm sending that to the back. You know, like so often, like if you've got like a full board, 6-7 units, you slam down your Athena, Loki can pick up your Athena and then say, actually, you know what? I'm going to switch your Athena with that mummy that you started building with. Like, you only had your 6 devotion, you know, like when we started the game. So, you know, you had your mummies, your Medusas, whatever it is. I'm just going to, like, your Sigurd. Nah, you know what? Athena goes to the back line. I'm switching it. This Sigurd can go in the front line. Or even worse, she takes your goddess. She switches the Athena that you've just put down, your beat stick, that you are ready to go to town with, switches that with your goddess, who hasn't moved and is still in the corner. Suddenly the Athena's in the corner behind all your own permanents, so it can't move. The only way you can get the Athena back into work is like to move all your permanents out the way to create a path for the Athena. But then Loki could just decide to teleport it back again. There were some very, very silly games. At one point, someone put an Osiris down, but they had the 2 monument corner I'm talking about. I took the Osiris and I put it in this monument corner, surrounded by its own monument, so it couldn't attack them. And of course, the Osiris didn't do anything for the rest of the game. That's how we beat Set. Like, one of the annoying things about Set, if she has like her loop going, is if you destroy the Osiris, because the Osiris has the ability when it comes onto the battlefield of destroying something, Set doesn't mind that. She just revives it. Osiris's ability goes off again. She destroys your most valuable thing. So by just taking this Osiris and saying, actually, you know what? I'm not sending it to the graves. You can get it back again and put it wherever you like. It goes here. It goes in this corner. Your monuments around it. Forget that. Like, that's now not in the game anymore. You get its devotion. You don't get its great attack stats. And you're definitely not going to get its ability anymore. This is locked up. You've locked it up yourself with your own monuments. You've created your own prison. You know, Loki can do that. If you make positional mistakes, Loki can hurt you. Additional tactical and strategic options. That's what the top 4 are all about. The top 4 goddesses in the game allow you to like have these alternate choices. They just give you more ways of proceeding through your turns, more options that other goddesses don't have. And Loki is most definitely the epitome of this. The danger is more that it's so tempting to use her ability and to do silly things that a lot of the time it is better just to play a standard game. It's easy to forget that Loki has the base 6 devotion generation, which is the highest base devotion generation you can get in the game. She's a 2080. You can just play standard until you need to not play standard. I'm also going to give the example, but the example is pretty... It's one that I've used twice before, right? I talked about Izanami and this example, and then when I was talking about Odin, I used the same example just to kind of like show how they have alternate options. I've already explained Loki, so I'm just going to go through the example super quick, just to explain it and why they're so great. So the example, you know what? I'll bring up the actual things as well. The example I brought just for both of them, just to kind of like talk about their ability to bring like additional strategic options, is your opponent has like a wall of Asgard. This wall of Asgard is absolutely killing you. Like, a large part of Kamigami is about making positive EV trades, you know, like just getting an economic victory. Like, if it costs your opponent more to attack you than for you to attack them, then that's a war that eventually you're just going to grind them down and they just can't keep up. And your opponent's got this wall of Asgard out, and it is just killing you. Like, slowly, bit by bit, you're falling further and further behind. This cannot stay on the board anymore. It is just unacceptable. You must get to this wall of Asgard, yeah? You must get to it like immediately. This turn, it must happen right now. But there's a boulder in the way, and there's chaff all around. But the important thing is, it basically goes: you've got a unit. then the Balder, who is standing in the way of the Wall of Asgard, and then the Wall of Asgard, of course. So what you need to do, the standard route is you have to attack the Balder. Say you're using, well, the example I used for Odin and Izanami was just like a 4 per 10. So I actually used, like, if you have 2 Skadi on the board, yeah? I haven't actually got Skadi in this deck, but we're just going to use it because I used 4 per 10s for both of those examples. Right, so what you need to happen, like the standard route is, this Skadi has 10 attack. It has to attack the Balder twice, then it has to move forward for 4, then it has to attack the Wall of Asgard twice. So the Balder twice for 8, then you move for 4, then you attack the Wall of Asgard twice for 6. So that's 12 plus 4 plus 16, 32. If you go the standard route, you spend 32 devotion destroying this Wall of Asgard, yeah? Now, Izanami has the ability to sacrifice a unit to get rid of the Balder, which means she only has to move for 4 and then attack this Wall of Asgard for 12, so she only pays 16. Odin as well has the ability to use just double the attack of the Skadi. So it attacks the Balder once for 8, then it moves for 4, then it attacks the Wall of Asgard for 6. So it's 18. Instead of 32, he pays 18. Loki, of course, has her option, which is, I don't care about this Balder, it's just in the way. Like, you've got something in the way, I don't want to deal with it. So she just pays 5 to move the Skadi into the position of the Balder, so it's now next to the Wall of Asgard for 5. She pays 5, and then she attacks the Wall of Asgard twice, yeah? Now, Balder only affects units, it doesn't affect permanents, so her attack cost debuff doesn't actually work on Wall of Asgard. So Loki spends 5 on the ability, and then the Skadi attacks twice at 4 per 10. Except, it's 6 because of Wall of Asgard. So that is 12 plus 5, 17. So instead of 32, Loki can pay 17 devotion. Again, this is why they're top tier. They offer you alternate choices, great tactical options. These just alternate ways of doing things. Of course, if it's more costly to do it a certain way, like, you don't have to use Loki's ability, and the trap is often using it just because you can use it. I got really carried away, like in Greek mythology, I had this deck, and I thought dreams were going to come true, like it's going to be super amazing. Then I realised I was actually losing more matches than I really should have been, and the trick was actually just to play like a more standard game, and just use Loki's ability, like strategically, not stupidly, not every single turn, not get carried away with it. It is tempting as Loki to just like create as much mischief as possible. Try not to. Try to consider that she is actually in herself a very, very good goddess outside of her ability, and the ability is just an incredible additional tool she has that no one else has. Right, I've talked about Loki enough. Even the alternate comparison that I had with Odin and Izanami, which I think is like an interesting comparison, because going through something and having to pay 32 devotion and just having some shortcut that no one else has. You have this ability to just skip. Everyone else has to take the long way around, and you can just take the shortcut. Amazing. Right, I'll go through the cards, shall I? Armageddon, yeah, 3 copies. I actually wanted 4 copies, but there was just so much that I wanted. And Loki actually benefits from a lot of different cards, and she can play a lot of different ways. And because of her ability to like put herself into safety if you miss position or make mistakes, or to just switch your cards around. So the thing that is next to her happens to be like the mummy that you put down like 2 mummies at the start. Like you were building up your devotion, you didn't have enough devotion for your more expensive stuff, so you had 2 mummies next to you. Loki's ability to like move all the pieces around, so the things next to her are the mummies that you've got, but of course they're 8 per 10, so they're not really going to put in work against Loki. She's basically protected, while all your really super dangerous stuff, like your Fenrir, is at the back and can't hit her. So Loki actually has the ability to kind of like sit in very strange situations and just burn you. So I had to have like the Artemis Arrow in here. We definitely won a few matches with Seaquake as well. It was strange. She still needs that emergency button though. Like you're playing all these tricks and all this silliness, but if it goes wrong, it can go wrong very, very serious. And Loki has greater ability to survive in like bad conditions than almost any other goddess. I mean, she really is just so tricky. You do not tend to beat Loki with your best unit because your best unit is miles away, and she is just fiddling with all the options, just playing with everything, and it is very irritating. You do actually have to beat Loki a lot of the time with like your mummy or some other like substandard unit. Yeah, Armageddon though. I think every goddess just has to have this ability. Just say, look, you started so fast and my hand was crap and I've managed to salvage this Armageddon. Let's just try again. Let's just start again. You got me there. That was a good one. Now do it again. Earthquake. I've already talked about Seaquake, but you know, both the two of them. Sometimes I don't have Earthquake because I could just jump straight to Armageddon. I bounce, but you can only really do that with like goddesses that like to go high. Loki tends to be on the low side most of the time. Because of her ability to just like survive in very, very like hostile conditions. That is, those hostile conditions also tend to be she has less units on the board. She's not going to get to like 30, 40 devotion a lot of the time. So you do need like the economy options of Earthquake here. Just something that if your opponent does something crazy, gets carried away, throws down like 3 Fushimi in a row, you just got that cheap, easy option just to deal with that. So you don't have to jump all the way up to 26. Seaquake though, like I said, I've got the arrows in here. I've got the Seaquake in here. Loki actually has the ability, if you make a mistake, to just burn you. She'll just throw spells at you, similar to the Tsukuyomi deck in some ways. Just the Tsukuyomi effectively just went, you have to race me, like you have to get to me before I can burn you, before I can kill you, just with all these spells I'm throwing. But if you get to me, of course, I'm just gonna like Seaquake, reset the board, then you have to get to me again. But you know, like miracles don't have a range or anything. They can hit whatever they want. Loki, of course, kind of similar, but Tsukuyomi gets the discount, which is why she can afford to do it. Loki can afford to just jump all over the place, so you can never really get great value trades, which is why she can afford to do it. She effectively buys more time to get more devotion to do it, whereas Tsukuyomi gives a discount, so it's cheaper for her to do it. Mummy, brilliant. It's always been like one of my favourite cards since I don't know since time began. I can't remember not liking this card at this point, but fantastic chaff unit, positive EV, just gives you like these little trades all over the place. Almost always, the 4 devotion you spend on Mummy is less than what your opponent has to spend to get rid of it. Like, for example, if Mummy attacked itself, like they've got a Mummy and they're trying to get rid of your Mummy so they can actually get to you. Of course, it has to attack twice, so that's 16. But you only spent 4 on the Mummy. It goes to the graveyard, and then you can just slam it down again. You know, like that is one of the more useful characteristics that a chaff unit can have. Is just if it gets destroyed, you can it comes back. Like, that's amazing. Rise of the Pharaoh, yeah. Loki doesn't tend to go very high, but when she does go high, you do need that ability just to kind of like make the most. It's not completely representative in this deck, but Loki does actually like combo pieces and you know like Hades statue, Medusa combos, stuff like that. You tend to, I mean, even in this deck, still have like the basic combo of Loki switches a mummy that was next to her with the enemy goddess. Suddenly the enemy goddess is in your part of the neighborhood and you just smack it in the face. Rise of the Pharaoh twice and maybe a Fenrir, you know? So the Rise of the Pharaoh equal another 20 damage. This is without, you know, any buffs or modifiers of the Fenrir, of course. But I do have Battle Plan, which means Fenrir goes from 3.5 per 10 to, you know, like 3, 2 per 10. Amazing. Like, if you can get to that point, it's absolutely fantastic. You'll notice that I've got Tyr and Fenrir in the deck. In Odin and Thor, which are, of course, also like part of the Norse mythology and kind of follow similar lines, I had Skadi and Kraken because you know Skadi is effectively like a battle plan on legs that can actually attack things, and Kraken was just like this incredible like beefy unit. For 15 you got 6 devotion back, 20 attack, 40 health. The 40 health of Skadi and Kraken was super useful in Thor and Odin, and it is great with Loki as well, but I just found 4 gives you devotion back when you fight. Odin makes it easier to fight by doubling the attack of things. They enjoy fighting, yeah, and having big beefy units is really fantastic for them. So it's worth like just spending a little bit extra. You know, like they can make the most of that. But Loki doesn't actually have a combat ability. Like she doesn't make combat easier for you or anything. So she's actually the opposite in some ways to Thor and Odin, or even Hel. Like so, just having Tyr and Fenrir who are significantly cheaper and just but still offer that 7 per 20 on the Fenrir, give you some of the best elements of Skadi and Kraken. Nowhere near as beefy, of course. They're really lacking that 40 health that I love, but still have that attack opportunity. And what Loki does have isn't a combat skill, but the ability to just pull your opponent to where you want them. So you don't necessarily need your finisher to be beefy. It's not going to be in the front line. It doesn't need to get to your to the enemy goddess in a way that like your Kraken does. It's not traveling across the map. You can have it right next to you. You can be best friends for like the entire game. Like it can just not be under any threat whatsoever. And then when you decide, you switch the mummy, you switch the Tyr. Suddenly the Fenrir goes crazy. Then it attacks. So she doesn't need the beefiness quite as much, and she doesn't really appreciate the 40 health quite as much either. Like she can't make the most of it. She doesn't really want to be in combat, as much as Odin or Thor does, plain and simple. Right, so Rise of the Pharaoh, yeah. I was just talking about, how it gives your Fenrir that extra 20 damage. Of course, if you're like Seaquake in Artemis Arrow, you're looking to put people into what I call like the red zone or just like the danger zone. And Loki loves that zone. She loves it. Like it's unbelievable how much she enjoys it. When, like Seaquake has gone off a couple of times, there's been the plague. Like if Loki and the enemy goddess are at 30, Loki is almost always favored in that matchup. Almost always. Because her ability to pull you when she, like, if Loki's got 30, you can't do anything about that. She will pull you and deal the 30 and kill you. But, like enemy goddesses, like a lot of the time, say like Hel, if Hel goes down to 30 health, well, what does she do about that? She can do her best to get to Loki, right? But she has to get to Loki. She has to travel across the map to get to Loki. But Loki just doesn't have to do anything. She just pulls you when she wants and finishes you. She's always favoured in low health matchups. Loki loves low health matchups. Absolutely loves them. And Rise of the Pharaoh just gives you that chance to just deal that extra bit of damage. So suddenly the enemy goddess is in the day like even lower. You want to get them just that little bit lower. Rise of the Pharaoh definitely helps in that. Also, of course, sometimes you're at like 16, 17. Rise of the Pharaoh just allows you to pull that Seaquake off that you so desperately need. Or of course just jump just that little bit to get to Armageddon. 26 isn't that far from 16. It sounds weird to kind of say that, but you very rarely have 16 when you're trying to hit the 26. You tend to have had like an Idun Tree on the field for a bit, so you'll be at like 21, 22, 23, and then Rise of the Pharaoh puts you in that Armageddon range too. Taisha, yeah, Everflowing Sun and Taisha together. I've said it in like every deck description, every review. You need some cycling, you need some ability to dig through your deck, the ability to thin your deck out. If you need an option and you don't have that option in your hand, it's often true with, I mean, even with Loki. Like I said, she is resistant to hostile situations. She's one of the most like resilient, toughest to take down goddesses. But even she just needs that ability. Like all she's really doing is buying time, right? Like she's forcing you to attack with your worst unit instead of that Athena. But that unit is still attacking you. She's just buying time. She's just very good at buying time. You still need the answer. You still need that option. So yeah, I mean the ability to cycle is invaluable. I don't actually like Everflowing Sun. I think it's too expensive. But the truth of the matter is, sometimes Taisha's too slow. Like you're in a board state where you absolutely have to find this Armageddon. But if you throw down Taisha, your opponent just destroys the Taisha. So you've accomplished nothing. It's just something that you can play from hand that your opponent can't really stop. Draw 2 cards. It gives you some chance just to find what you need when you need it. Soul Extraction, absolutely fantastic. Obviously, if you go first, but even just in general, you tend to find great spots for this card. I mean, it's all about just like devotion trading, right? If your opponent's got 8 devotion and you soul extract for 2, you know, and take that 8 devotion, you made like a profit of 6 devotion. You know, you just make these positive trades as a general rule. I just find this card so easy to use, super useful. It doesn't tend to clog up the hands. You know, it's just a fantastic card. One of the best openers also in insane mode, because in insane mode opponents get bonus devotion as part of, you know, the insane mode difficulty. They just get like 8 bonus devotion, and that means that on their starting turn they start with 8, then they get their base. So if it was a Loki, she would get 8 plus 6, and she'd be at 14, which means she could just throw down like a Greek temple and an Itsukushima, and suddenly she's at like 13 devotion. No, 14. 14 devotion a turn. No, like soul extraction does still put you just slightly behind, but there are times in insane mode where if your opponent just slams down like a Greek temple and an Itsukushima, you can't compete with that. They're generating 14 devotion per turn from turn 1. That's insane. Extraction just allows you some parity. It allows you to stay in the game, if you know what I mean. Like not get blown out completely. Just some ability to just make these constant EV trades, grind them out, economic victories, dig your way back into the game without just getting rushed. Time reflow, yeah, allows you to use your grave as a toolbox. Absolutely fantastic. For 2 devotion, this card can be whatever the perfect answer is. If you've got it in your grave, you can pull it out. I think this is a fantastic price. Absolutely no problem. Your opponent decides just to throw down like all the Medusas. You're playing against like a Zeus or something. Then you can pull out the Seaquake. If they throw out like 3 Greek temples, then you can pull out the Earthquake. You know what I mean? Like it's just fantastic. Also, of course, it's effectively like additional copies of a card. So if you've used Armageddon, but you really need like to use it again, like the board got reset, but your opponent has just had god draws. Like they every single time they draw 1 card a turn, that card has just been amazing, and they've maxed out their devotion. So they're beating you again. You need an Armageddon, but the other 2 copies are in the bottom of your deck. You know, Time Reflow is effectively like another 3 copies of Armageddon, if that's what it has to be. Yeah, battle plan. It works in some decks. As a general rule, it tends to work in decks where attack costs are low. This isn't the perfect deck for it. Like Fenrir 7 per 20 isn't perfect. It still gets the job done. It's still a great card. But normally you use it like with Sphinx or Ninkyo, where you're offering 4 per 10. 4 per 10 is absolutely amazing. The reason that's better than with Fenrir is, say if you've got a 4 per 10 instead of a 720, what happens is it goes from 4 per 10 to 3 per 10, yeah? Whereas if you've got a 720, it goes from 720 to 620, which means you go from 3.5 per attack to 3 per attack. But the 4 per 10 just went from 4 to 3, and then it'll go from 3 to 2, and then 2 to 1. Whereas, of course, she'll go 3.5, 3, 2.5, 2, 1.5, if that makes sense. So actually, like multiple battle plans is more effective on units that have lower attack costs, even when it seems counterintuitive. And you're like, what? Fenrir is a 7 per 20. You know, like that's 3.5 per 10. How can you possibly say that like a Ningyo, whose default attack is 4 per 10, isn't like as good an attacker? Yeah, actually, Sphinx and Ningyo are better attackers than Fenrir. That's just the truth. Um, the other thing to say about battle plan is that the benefit is actually exponential. I also say this a lot, but I do think it's important, like when you work out the maths. But having 3 battle plans is more than 3 times better than having 1 battle plan. Using the example of like a 4 per 10, because that's the example I've been using for like all the videos. It's just if you have 1 battle plan, it goes from 4 to 3, so that is a 25% discount you're getting. If you have 2 battle plans, it goes from 3 to 2. So you've just saved a third. And if you have 3 battle plans, it goes from 2 to 1. So that's 50%. So you can see like each battle plan you have on top of the previous battle plan is better. You know what I mean? So like a lot of the time, the reason I'm saying this, right, is that a lot of the time you'll have a situation where you have like a random battle plan in your hand, This is your win condition, guys. This isn't just something you just like throw down. One battle plan isn't going to do a lot for you. Like, you know, like you've got a battle plan and a tier in your hands. You just turn that tier from 6 per 10 to a 5 per 10. Big wow. Like, that's not quite how it works. This is all about identifying your route to victory, yeah? If you've got 2 battle plans and a Fenrir in your hand, then yeah, slam down the battle plan. You can see that, oh, if I go battle plan, Fenrir, this is my route to victory. Like, that is fantastic. At that point, you know, Fenrir is at 5 for 20. And I'm just going to create like such value in terms of damage transfer that it is going to be fun. Like, that's just going to work. That is a win condition. That's literally a win condition. Just be careful, yeah. These are so valuable. You only have 4 of them in the deck. Just throwing out a battle plan because it happens to be in your hand. You want to throw out your Idun trees, your tears, your mummies, your Taishas. This is one of the last things you want to put down. Even though it's only a 6 cost, a lot of the time, this is your finisher. This is how you win. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. So just be careful. That's the only reason I was talking about like how it gets exponentially better. You need to kind of understand that battle plan is better in numbers, and you tend to win. You know, like when you've set up numbers and your opponent just can't take them down. Idun Tree. I think Norse mythology is the strongest mythology out of the 4, and in large part it's due to this card. I think this is easily one of the strongest monuments in the game. I haven't actually like looked through every single monument in the game and decided what like the best monument ever of all time is. But Idun Tree, like from day one, I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, this card is absolutely insanely good. They've basically taken the ability of Isis and they've just stapled it on a card. That's kind of insane on its own. Like, they've taken the ability of a goddess and just they've put that on a card for 9 devotion. And like, this ability shuts down so many strategies. I mean, stuff like the Seaquakes, the Plagues, Artemis Arrows. Your opponent can't ping you out. Just like the residual damage you pick up, you know, throughout a match. Idun Tree just shuts that all down. You know, all of that. Your opponent puts down a Pharaoh's Plague. So what? It's just not relevant. It's not remotely important. It's a fantastic card, and it's crazy that it's 9 for 5. Like that. For this ability, normally you have to pay for the ability, you know, like Fushimi is an 8/5 because you don't get any ability whatsoever. It's purely a devotion machine. Idun Tree is 9/5, so you pay 1 extra devotion for a killer ability. That's crazy. Just look at it in comparison to Taisha. Like, I play Taisha because the ability is so great, but you clearly have to pay. It's an 8/3. What? How is this 9/5? You know, like, surely it should be 9/4 at the most. This is just too good. It's way, way too good. Also, 9 is perfect for Loki because if she goes second, you get the free devotion for going second, plus the 6. So she hits 9. 9 is actually exactly what she gets if she goes second on turn 1. So in that way as well, like, it just allows her to hit like bang on. This is one of your strongest starts by far. Legitimately, just like Loki and the tree on its own is 11 devotion per turn. So if on turn 1 you put down the tree, you've got 3 turns to Armageddon. If your opponent immediately throws down like Greek Temple Itsukushima, then you can like this is just way too, this is an amazing start for you. Really, really good, and it just shuts down so much as well. I think it's too good, but that's just my opinion. But easily one of the best monuments in the game. Easily one of the best arguments for why like the Norse goddesses are stronger. You know, in general, just like as a group, if you had to look at the groups in each mythology, you have to say like the Norse ones are. Just having the Norse tag is invaluable because of this card. Artemis Arrow, I've already talked about burn. Just the ability to just like put your opponent in that zone where you don't even need a unit near them, and you can just, you know, like they're at 40 health, 2 Artemis Arrows. That's only 18 devotion. That's nothing. That's super cheap from long range. Loki can be just hiding in these stupid positions, hiding behind monuments, behind loads of chaff. It can be a nightmare to get to her, and the whole time she's just throwing out Seaquakes and Artemis Arrows. Your health is going down. Artemis is, you know, like, Loki is very, very good at this game. Loki is very, very good at that sort of game. Tyrion Fenrir, I've already talked about. Loki doesn't like to fight. Her ability isn't about fighting. It's about positional play. It's about giving you an additional, just option, in terms of switching units around so that you can set the board out exactly how you like in the perfect formation. So these are lower cost than in other Norse decks, just because you still get that attack of Fenrir. Tyr allows you to jump into Fenrir. Just a little bit leaner than most Norse decks is Loki, because she has to be. She doesn't have the ability to just go on a rampage the way that Odin can just lose his mind and destroy 4, 5, 6 permanents. Loki quite isn't that, but still, when you're talking about the best and most useful abilities in the game, this ability is insanely good. Easily, just watch the campaign. You can see, I think Japanese mythology is what I recommend, because by then I've gotten a grip on Loki and I've kind of understood her a little bit better. Just super good. She is really good. If the first S tier you get is Loki, one, congratulations, because you just got one of the best goddesses in the game. Two, she does take a little bit of getting used to. It's not always obvious when you should use the ability, and it's very easy to just throw devotion away using the ability that you could be using on building a board. So just be careful of that. Apart from that, she's the 14th goddess. I've finished them all. It's all over, guys. I've done it. I've done it. Finally, I can go. I can rest. Just as I don't know. Hopefully they'll give me an award, or there'll be some sort of achievement on Steam. It's called Kamigami Scholar or something.